All right, guys. So Arizona head coach Jedd Fisch is headed to Washington to replace Kalen DeBoer, which is headed to Alabama to replace Nick Saban. So we keep going down the domino trail here. We're going to keep having dominoes until somebody either hires within or hires an OC or DC. We've got about 10 plus candidates here that might be interested in Arizona or Arizona might have interest in. So let's go ahead and dive into it, shall we? All right, so first off here, we got alphabetical order for the most part. Brent Brennan, San Jose State head coach, has had somewhat success at San Jose State. Nobody's really going to win that many games there, but he does have some Arizona ties, was a GA there when he was younger. So could be an interesting prospect. You know, who can Arizona pull? It's kind of iffy. You know, I mean, they're headed to the Big 12, so they're going to be able to pull more than a group of five school could, but also they're not in the premier conference. They're not in the Big 10 or the SEC. So who can they pull? You know, it's going to be up for debate as far as how high they can go. But yeah, Brent Brennan, definitely an interesting option. Next up, Jason Candle, Toledo head coach. All right, so he's done a really good job here. Took over for Matt Campbell at Toledo after he left. We've seen previously Toledo head coaches have success in the Big 12, talking about Matt Campbell at Iowa State. So could Jason Candle make a similar adjustment there, you know, coming up from Ohio down to the Big 12 country, coming to Arizona? He's won a lot of games at Toledo, had them borderline top 25 this year. Would he come down to Arizona? It's a possibility. I've also seen his name thrown out, heck, to be even the Ohio State offense coordinator next year to kind of get his name out there even more. So I think he's looking to move up. Would definitely be an interesting get. If you could pull in Jason Kendall, I think that would be a solid grab for Arizona. All right, next up here, Brennan Carroll, Arizona offense coordinator. So if you want to have a little continuation, possibly keep Noah Fafita, keep some of your weapons at Arizona from going to Washington, hiring within Brennan Carroll might be a good option. Brennan Carroll, son of Pete Carroll, former Seattle Seahawks and USC head coach. So he hasn't been a head coach yet, but it might be in his genes. He might be a good head coach. But also, like I said, kind of keeping that same run. You know, I mean, keep the same team if you run it back with an OC or DC, and that's something you might could do with Brennan Carroll. All right, next up, probably the guy I'm highest here. Highest on here on the list. Why can't I speak today? Jamey Chadwell, Liberty. I don't think he says yes, but I think you got to make a run at him, give him a call anyway. He's probably the best group of five coach right now. I have from pretty solid sources that he has turned down Power 5 jobs before, particularly Mississippi State. So if he turned down Mississippi State in the SEC, I don't see him taking Arizona, but I think you still got to take a run at him, empty the banks. And if he says yes, you've got the next guy probably. Next up, Jake Dickert, Washington State head coach. All right, so Jake Dickert, funny name to say, sorry. Jake Dickert, Washington State head coach. All right, you saw Oregon State's coach, Jonathan Smith, leave. Washington State and Oregon State kind of in a similar situation right now. Both left out of the party when the Pac-12 kind of dissolved. They're both headed to the Mountain West of sorts for the next 2 years until they can kind of hopefully get in the Big 12 or the ACC. Has won ball games at Washington State. They kind of had a pretty solid run at the beginning of this year. We're like a borderline top 10 team at one point, and then just free fall from there. When they had that solid start at the beginning of the year, I had heard he was a leading candidate for Michigan State. Obviously, that didn't happen because he kind of just, like I said, free fall at the end of the year. But could definitely do worse than somebody that has and is a Power 5 head coach. All right, next up, I don't know how realistic this name is. Scott Frost, former Nebraska UCF head coach. Won a lot of games at UCF. Didn't win a bunch of games in Nebraska, but was kind of on the edge, you know what I mean? But Nebraska is a better job than Arizona. It's in the Big 10. So I've heard, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with this name, but he's a name I've seen thrown out a lot for this job already within like the past couple hours. So obviously he's trying to put his name out there and kind of get feelers for, can he get this job or not? I don't think they'll hire him. We'll get to who I would pick and who I think they'll pick at the end of the video, but I don't think they would hire Scott Frost. All right, next up, an interesting candidate, Ryan Grubb. So he's the Washington offense coordinator, headed to Bama most likely to be the OC with Kalen DeBoer. I really thought he would get the Washington head coaching job. I guess he didn't. He put out on Twitter that he did try to get it, but they went another direction. Would definitely be an interesting name to pull. His offenses are really, really fun to watch, really good offense. They tore up Texas this year. in the semifinal. If you watch that, interesting choice here, but doesn't have any head coaching experience, so I might give you a little room for pause. All right, next up, Kliff Kingsbury. All right, former Arizona Cardinals coach, former Texas Tech head coach, former A&M OC, currently at USC, I believe. I don't know if he's trying to get back into the college game or not, but I have seen his name associated with a ton of jobs, Washington, A&M. So similar to Scott Frost, I think he's trying to get back in the game. I don't think he'll go to Arizona, but heck, I mean, he's already been in Arizona once at the NFL level. Why not go ahead and run it back with University of Arizona, you know? All right, next up, GJ Kinne, Texas State, kind of a rising star in the coaching realm. Turned around Texas State really impressively this year. Got like 8, I think they went 8 or 9-5 by the end of the year. I think he's probably going to need a little more, experience, and not necessarily experience, but kind of more prove it before he gets a job like in the Big 12. But I feel like he's probably going to ultimately end up being the next Baylor head coach, probably. But if you could pull GJ Kinne, he did win at Texas State. Not a bad hire. All right, next up, Barry Odom, UNLV head coach, has also been the head coach at Missouri before. Had them in the top 25 one year, I think. Obviously, it didn't work out there at Missouri because they've got Eli Drinkwitz now, but does have Power 5 head coaching experience. Has won a lot of ball games this season at UNLV. So he's a pretty good coach. And like I said, you've got experience in the SEC. Not that necessarily affects anything here, but if you were a head coach in the SEC, you can probably be a head coach in the Big 12 is kind of what I'm getting at. But has won a lot of ball games. Like I said, had Missouri one year, I think number 23. So had them ranked pretty high in the top 25. Definitely could do worse than Barry Odom. But do you really want to run it back when, while he has been a Power 5 head coach, he didn't necessarily win at Missouri, All right, next up, Garrett Riley, Clemson offense coordinator, previously the TCU offense coordinator last season when they made that run. Lincoln Riley's brother, obviously. So he has the name, kind of has the pedigree, and won a lot of ball games at TCU. I'm told previously they turned down Group of 5 opportunities to go take the Clemson OC job. So while he wasn't that successful at Clemson this year, part of that's just being on your resume. Yeah, I was the OC for Clemson. You know what I mean? So once that's on your resume, you can come be a Big 12 head coach. Could he do that? Obviously, he has ties to recruiting Texas, being at TCU. Definitely could do worse than Garrett Riley, I believe. All right, next up, Glenn Schumann, Georgia DC. He's another one. If you could call him and he says yes, I think you get him, but I don't know if he would say yes. I feel like he's holding out for a Big Ten or SEC job probably. But if you could land him, you're looking at a similar, like a Dan Lanning situation. You bring in the DC from Georgia, Kirby Smart from Alabama. You bring in a DC from one of those two programs. You're probably getting a solid head coach that has really studied under some impressive guys, mainly Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. All right, we had a couple more names here. All right, Will Stein. Oh, my bad. Will Stein, Oregon offense coordinator. All right, so he has won a lot of ball games as far as being an offense coordinator at Oregon. Their offense is really explosive, kind of turned around Bo Nix. Does have ties to the Texas area. Was at UTSA with Jeff Traylor for a little bit, I believe. So definitely has ties to that area. Puts up impressive numbers on offense. This would be kind of similar to Ryan Grubb, but Stein has Texas ties, though. All right, last but not least on this list, Jeff Traylor, UTSA head coach. It sounds like he is trying to get out of UTSA. He's won a lot of ball games at UTSA, been really successful. Did interview for the A&M job this year, so he's trying to move out. They're starting to lose a bunch of guys to the portal to various Power 5 schools, so it's getting tougher to win at UTSA. So I could definitely see him making that jump. All right, so let's go ahead and break down this list. I'm going to go ahead and mark out who I don't think is a realistic candidate here. All right, so let's start off with, Glenn Schumann, Georgia DC. I think he would be a good get if you could get him. I don't think you can get him, though. I feel like he's going to hold out for a Power 2 job, a Big Ten or SEC job eventually. All right, next name we're going to cross off here, Kliff Kingsbury. I don't really know how realistic that one is, but obviously, like I said, he is trying to get his name back out there. So he is interested in becoming a head coach again, I think, but feel like he could probably get a better job than Arizona. Not necessarily saying deservedly so, but he probably could. All right, next name we're going to cross off here, Scott Frost. Like I said, I've been told he is really pushing for this job, but I feel like he didn't win enough in Nebraska for me to kind of think he warranted that. Now, he did win at UCF, though, so they're in the Big 12 too now, but yeah, I don't think so. I think he's going to have to prove it again. All right, next name we're going to cross off here, Jason Candle, Toledo head coach. While if you did offer him and he said yes, that would be awesome. I don't think he doesn't necessarily have ties to this area, so I don't know if he would take this job. I feel like he'll hold out for a Big Ten job eventually one day. But yeah, I don't think he'll take that job. All right, next name we're going to cross off here, Jamey Chadwell. While if I had to pick from anybody from this list, this is who I would hire. I don't think he takes this job. He doesn't necessarily seem, like I said, that he is eager to leave Liberty. He can make the playoff every year now at Liberty. He might be a lifer there, or he's just holding out for like a Florida job that's probably going to come open in the next year, or Arkansas. So yeah, I don't think he takes that job. All right, let's see. Next name we're going to cross off here is going to be Will Stein, Oregon offense coordinator. Would be an intriguing get, I guess. But still, you're in the Big 12. I think you can hire guys that have head coaching experience now, but definitely an interesting option, I guess. All right, next name we're going to cross off Ryan Grubb, Washington offense coordinator. Similar situation there. Grubb really doesn't have ties to the area like Stein did. And like I said, I think you're just going to hold out till you can get a head coaching guy, a guy that has head coaching experience. Now, Ryan Grubb, I've been told, has turned down Group of 5 opportunities before, even this year, because he's holding out for a bigger job. So it's definitely a possibility. It sounded like he wanted the Washington job, so I could see him interviewing, but I don't think he gets the job. But it definitely, I would not be surprised if he's a finalist for this job, though. All right, next thing I'm going to mark off here, Barry Odom. I have seen his name thrown around a lot for this job already, though, so I do wonder if he does get this position. I don't think he will, but it's definitely an intriguing option. While personally, he didn't win in Missouri, so that kind of gives me room for pause. Some guys are just made to be Group of 5 head coaches, you know what I mean? So I don't think I would go with Barry Odom. All right, next name I'm going to cross off here is going to be Jake Dickert, however you say it. All right, so he has won some ball games at Washington State, but hasn't been as successful as I would hope. I thought they'd be a lot better this year, and they just weren't. All right, so next name, Garrett Riley. All right, while he does have ties to the area, wouldn't be surprised if he does interview for the job. His offense at Clemson this year wasn't that impressive. And like I said, I think you can get a guy that has head coaching experience. Okay, next name we're going off, Brent Brennan, San Jose State head coach. We'll leave these 4 up here because I feel like these are probably going to be the 4 finalists for the job. I don't think he's won enough at San Jose State to kind of warrant this job. Like, for example, G.J. Kinne has won a lot of more ball games in one season. You know what I mean? Like, Brent Brennan has won a lot of games, but not getting up to that next level, you know? But definitely I think he'll interview for it as well. All right, so these are probably going to be, I think, your 3 finalists. Brennan Carroll, Arizona offense coordinator. Do you want to run it back? To be determined. G.J. Kinne or Jeff Traylor. I'm going to mark off Brennan Carroll at the moment. I don't think, while they could run it back with him, I don't think they will. You know, I think they'll go for a guy with head coaching experience. This is an important hire. First year in the Big 12, you kind of want to make a for real impression. But if you can somehow get commitment from all your players that, hey, if we hire Brennan Carroll, we're all going to run it back, then I think you do because you have a top 25 squad at the moment. All right, so these are my 2 finalists, G.J. Kinne and Jeff Traylor. I think ultimately they're going to go with Jeff Traylor. He has more experience as a head coach. And like I said, he interviewed for the A&M job. So obviously he is kind of wanted for those bigger openings at the moment. And if he can get an interview at A&M, he can definitely get an interview at Arizona. And definitely would be an intriguing option. He's got Texas ties, head coaching, whether it's high school, whether it's college, has been an assistant at Texas, been an assistant at Arkansas. So he has ties to the SEC as well. So definitely can recruit for sure. And I think would definitely make for an intriguing option at Arizona. As far as who I would pick, I would make a run at Jamey Chadwell and Glenn Schumann. I don't think they're both realistic, but would definitely make a run for them. If it was out of these guys, I would probably go Carroll or Kinne would be who I would go with, but hard to go wrong with any of them. But who do you think they hire? Who would you hire? Who do you think they hire? Let me know. Comment down below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe.